At this point, I think everyone's a little bit mentally ill. And so today we're doing an Iceberg video on mass hysteria, something that I feel like is pretty rampant. So today, like I said, we are doing a Iceberg video because I found this one online. I thought it was kind of interesting, and in today's day and age, I think mass hysteria or like quote unquote social contagions are a pretty common thing, and I know it's kind of controversial, but I thought I would present that to y'all. Mass hysteria is the spread of real symptoms and real pain through a group of people without any medical identifications for an organic origin. As I've already mentioned, mass hysteria kind of sticks to one group and spreads throughout that main group, usually because they all believe the same thing, or they're all exposed to the same thing, or they all have like a folk tale. Like if there's like a group of people that believe in a certain folk story or superstition, they might experience something when someone who's not like in the loop might not experience the mass hysteria part of the mass hysteria. For example, recently, I guess in the last couple of months, the whole like rapture was going to happen thing that took the internet by storm and was all over TikTok. I personally would categorize that as mass hysteria, but I'm not a doctor and I don't have any kind of backing for that. But it seems to fit the theme of, you know, people who were fundamental Christians who really did believe in the scripture, people online, any other unifying factors, especially those who were in the church of the pastor who was saying, like, you know, the world's going to end and everything. Those are pretty common when it comes to what and how mass hysteria spreads, because all of those people who were affected all had those shared beliefs and shared conceptions about the world. Tier 1. War of Worlds broadcast. This started with a Halloween special episode on the Mercury Theater on Air radio show, and it played a episode on the War of the Worlds, and the first half of the episode was delivered like a real radio broadcast that aliens had started to invade planet Earth. And at the time, because that's where most people got their information from, was the radio, they genuinely thought that New York was being attacked by aliens. Thus, everyone started to panic, call police, all that sort of thing. The Salem witch trials, if you don't know, is a major case of mass hysteria. And between the year 1692 and 1693, over 200 people were accused of witchcraft, and then they were executed in either burning them or hanging them, all sorts of horrible ways, because people were so paranoid that these horrible things that were going on during the time were results of witchcraft in the area. Bank run. So this isn't necessarily an event, more of an idea that people will start to lose faith in the banking system and all simultaneously take out all their money from the banks, which then would cause a bunch of issues financially, because the banks don't have all of the money on hand. So if you were to, if you took a city and everyone who lived in that city went to their bank and took out all their money, the banks don't actually have that money with them. So it would cause a lot of collapse and financial issues for those who have the money, because how it works is you put money in the bank and then they spend it and then so on and so forth. No, I don't think you should take your money out of the banks and have it for yourself, because they definitely need it. Don't take it out. Don't organize anything with your friends to take out as much money as possible. AIDS. The AIDS pandemic caused an obvious panic at the time. People were afraid of catching it in all sorts of ways that weren't realistic. This was fueled by the fear of homosexuality and its effect on society as a whole, and it spread as, I remember doing some research on this topic specifically, that people started to call it like the gay cancer because of how people viewed homosexuality at the time. And because of this outbreak of this new virus, it just spawned so much panic. People thought that AIDS could be spread through just hugs or handshakes, or if someone with AIDS touched a door handle that you touched and you touched it, you're gonna get AIDS, when actually it's not like that. You have to get blood, bodily fluids, drug needles, all that kind of stuff. is how you get AIDS. So if you want to speed run AIDS, I would recommend that you go to your local drug dealer. That was a joke, by the way. Don't do that. So now that I think about it, a lot of these topics have to do with something between like the 60s and the 80s. Because the next one is the Satanic Panic in the 1980s. People were afraid of Satan at the time. They thought it was going to influence the youth in every single way. And later on, we'll talk about how that affected metal and rock music. The major moral panic of the Satanic Panic was first popularized by the book Michelle Remembers, which was a book now discredited. Talks of the author's experience using recovered memory therapy, and through this therapy they were able to allegedly figure out that they were part of some satanic abuse and some satanic rituals through abuse. This sent shockwaves around North America of people claiming that they experienced ritualistic satanic abuse through daycares or family members or elites within their communities or even the government itself, all alleged, and that they shared these same experiences. And now I did say that this book was then discredited, but I have started to see a lot of stuff online about people coming forward with these stories and this, shared experiences of satanic ritual abuse. And with how much other crazy stuff is in the news, I don't know what to say. There's a lot of shit online that makes me think that there may or may not be a satanic elite group grooming people, but that's not what this video's about anymore. Now, off that same topic, this isn't the first time that the elites of the world have been accused of running some kind of weird child sacrifice satanic ring. I mean, look at all of the kind of QAnon conspiracies. I don't even know if I could say that, but this really popularized the idea that there was this satanic group of elites that were trafficking children, and that obviously led to a lot of parents pulling their kids from school and pulling their kids from daycare and all that craziness. So to piggyback off of that, the heavy metal music scene was the source of a lot of panic as well, because parents thought that their children were going to be possessed by the devil and be led to sin and live horrible lives and all that. Everything that comes with the classic fear of Satan's getting you type thing. And I think this was also, again, fueled by the fact that there was so much Christianity was such a, and still is today, a cornerstone in a lot of families and a lot of American values, that when you bring in Satan, it causes a lot of panic, obviously. D&D, yes, Dungeons and Dragons was a source of panic back in the day when it first started coming out. Again, the more extreme beliefs were that it had to do with magic and demons and monsters, and that these were actually some kind of weird ritual, or it was getting the youth to participate in something that wasn't holy. And again, it doesn't take a genius to see how Christianity kind of perpetuated that. I could see that being very popular in the Christian community way back in the day. I guess it wasn't that far away, but you know what I mean. Again, I don't want this to come off like I'm shitting on Christianity or anything. But the last three, Satan is a Judeo-Christian concept. The last three were all based on the fear of Satan. So, on to tier 2. I'm not going to say this one because it's going to absolutely nuke this channel into oblivion, but basically, since, quote, antiquity, Jewish people have been accused of using Christian babies as certain things. And that's all I'm going to say, because I would like this channel to grow and I don't want to be targeted. Post 9/11 terrorism hysteria is exactly what it sounds like. The Red Scare, communism. People were afraid of communism. So the Y2K panic was so interesting to me. I was born in the year 2000, so I wasn't super around for it. I mean, I wasn't even alive yet. when it really happened. But the idea was that all the computers before the year 2000 could only display like 2-digit numbers or something like that. And so when the year would roll over to 2000, a lot of people thought the world was going to end, because they had to, so much was already intertwined with technology and computers that people thought the whole system was going to shut down, that the governments of the world, financial systems, even like weather stuff was all going to go to shit because of this like switch to the new millennium and how they had to update computer systems. Obviously this didn't happen because we're all sitting here and all we ever use is computers anymore because we can't think. But I do think there are some crazy conspiracies out there about Y2K, and I really want to do an episode on that. The Black Friday death stampede is, again, exactly what it sounds like. It's the fear that, we're going to die on Black Friday. Like, we've all heard stories of employees or people just getting absolutely pulverized on Black Friday. It's not so much a thing now because of the internet, like Amazon and all that kind of garbage, but back in the day, you got to get them deals. You got to get that television for 45% off or nothing. Honestly, dude, Black Friday over Labubu's probably would be horrific to be a part of. Backmasking, I've actually never heard of this. I didn't know there was a word for this, but it's the fear that rock music, if played backwards, was playing certain hidden messages, or even like the frequencies were used to brainwash people to do horrible things. This led to paranoia, panic, and even protest against the genre itself. An example of this is that if you play Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, it kind of sounds like it's saying it's fun to smoke marijuana. I'll play like a second of it just so I don't get copyright, but you can do that. It's kind of fun. I think it's fun. The daycare scandals, or hysteria, was, and kind of still is, this idea that daycares are connected to satanic groups that are using children for rituals, and that it's spread all over the world. And this causes a bunch of people to panic that when they send their kids to school, they're actually sending them to like some weird ritualistic thing. So kind of relates back to the satanic panic thing. A lot of it has to do with Satan, the evil of everything. Tier 3. We're about halfway. The Population Bomb. The Population Bomb is actually a book that was published in 1968 by Paul R. Ehrlich, a Stanford University biologist, and Annie H. Ehrlich, a controversial biologist and senior researcher. Basically, the concept was that eventually humanity's population will grow so big that it will cause issues. That's overpopulation is going to cause every issue ever. And this causes a ton of panic. And low-key, not too far off from the target, I would say. I do feel like overpopulation is low-key kind of a problem in certain ways. I'm not trying to get into like replacement theory or whatever. The book really focused on the social implications and the alarmist tone or perspective of overpopulation, and urged people to limit populating the planet. And obviously this is problematic for people who don't want to stop doing that. I will say there is some evidence to suggest that overpopulation will kill us. I think it's not necessarily the amount of people that will kill us or destroy the planet. I think it's the negligence of that population. So, for example, like I referenced in the cheese video, that giant thing of garbage, that's going to get bigger. I mean, more people means more resources. So if we put our brains in the right direction for like renewable fuel and resources and shit, I think it would be fine, especially when we start inhabiting Mars and other planets. But I don't think the elites of the world have a humanitarian outlook or are really in it for people. I think they have kind of really set their sights on a potential breakaway civilization, and or Maybe they worship Satan. Havana syndrome is a very disputed medical issue where a bunch of officials from Canada and the US would go overseas and then experience symptoms of an illness accompanied by very loud noises. This happened in 2016, and they would experience dizziness, cognitive problems, balance issues, insomnia, headaches. This lasted months for them. And there was no real solution or real connection to anything. It was just whatever this loud sound was. And this happened to dozens of officials, and they just never figured out why. It just kind of happened, and that was that. Which is kind of interesting. Some people think, the first thing I thought of was like direct energy weapons, kind of like maybe like a foreign government was using some kind of supersonic beam weapon thing. We have those. Check out my HARP and Project Blue Beam video to kind of learn a little bit more about those, because those are real. So maybe a foreign adversary kind of has one, and we're using it on people for maybe like brainwashing. So I don't know. I could speculate. Another thing was bugs. People thought maybe bugs had to do with it. Maybe like a bug crawling up in somebody's ear, or like a mosquito. Like they all got like bit by something. But I still don't understand. Maybe the loud noises, because I was gonna say I don't understand the loud noises, but the loud noises could be like hemorrhaging, I think is that what it's called, or like something to do with like your ears having issues. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Irish Fright, or the Irish Panic, or whatever you want to call it, was between 1688 and 1689, was a anti-Catholic panic that was fueled by this weird turf war. And people thought that the Irish were going to start planning, or they've already planned to kill off and mass murder a bunch of Protestants and Catholics in England or throughout Europe. I don't really know why. There's beef there. Like, I don't know why the English hate the Irish so much, but there's that. Oh, I don't like the fucking Irish, man. They fucking, got the red hair and a pot of gold, man. Leprechauns, bang. Excited delirium is a pretty controversial topic and is usually involved with law enforcement. It's this concept that after arresting somebody, or like detaining somebody via arrest, I guess I should say, they'll die. Just because of whimsy. I don't know, because that's it. They just die. And this is controversial because of, it's often seen as just something to explain like mishandlings and stuff. And like they'll go to arrest somebody, and then during the arrest they'll become so excited and then get confused or delirious and then die, and then while they're in custody they'll die or something like that, and then maybe it's like a workaround and people will get upset about it. But I find that the reason this relates to mass hysteria is because it's not like, now that I think about it, this isn't really a mass hysteria, because if I was being arrested I'd be freaking out. I don't necessarily like think being arrested is a good thing. Obviously something went wrong if you're being arrested, and I feel like if you're getting, thrown to the ground or tased, I could see how that would excite the body to the point where you're freaking out, and then like the anxiety, and then I don't know, maybe brother just had a heart attack. Again, this is accompanied by no evidence medically to suggest any kind of issue, and then that's kind of what fuels the whole idea of like the workaround loophole thing. The 1966 date rape panic is exactly what it is. That's exactly what that's, I don't know how else to describe it to you. The Columbine effect. This is in reference to the Columbine mass shooting that happened in 1999, and it basically is that the shooting would inspire copycats or inspire some kind of quote-unquote contagion that would then snowball into more mass shootings. And I do think a lot of people stand on this because of the idea that there's so much coverage of these things that it could inspire other people to try it or do it and think, oh, I can do better than that, or I can, get away with it or whatever. And it is a fucked up idea, because there are I mean, if you're blasting bad shit all over the internet all the time, I mean, there's so many people out there, I don't know who's going to hear it, you know? And there is a fine line between, like, documenting horrible things and perpetuating it via the documentation of it. But again, you don't want to leave it in the dark because you want to educate people on it. So it is hard to, you know, ride that line. I'm trying to read this. It's Filet ex Dux or Deus. I'm sorry. It basically is Madness of Two, which is a rare psychological issue where two people are sharing the same delusion. The best way I can describe this is think of like the Joker and the Harley Quinn. They kind of it is kind of running into like Stockholm syndrome territory, but it's like there will be a dominant figure that has a delirious episode that then kind of bleeds onto the other person, and they kind of start to feed off of each other. And there's usually there's like an isolation aspect to it between like these two people who have been isolated from everybody else, and then they start to isolate themselves even more because of this shared delusion. The ghost dance was a spiritual movement among Native American tribes in the late 1800s centered around the belief that performing a specific dance would return the ancestral spirits and cause the white settlers to disappear and restore the lands to their native traditional ways of life. The U.S. authorities got involved with this ritual simply because they thought it was an act of rebellion and thought it was a way to bring people back from the dead, and it had like, you know, demonic quote-unquote qualities. And I think it stems from just like a misunderstanding in like the cornerstone of Christianity again. I'm gonna be real. I think that's where it kind of comes from. And then a ton of people died. Mods and Rockers was in the 60s. It was just two rival gangs that were like really violent. Saint Venus dance? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it also is like the dancing pandemic. This might be one of the earliest recorded mass hysteria events. It's in medieval Europe, where groups of people would uncontrollably start dancing and not be able to stop for hours, days, and even months. People would dance to exhaustion or even death, and nobody can really explain why. Some speculate that due to the stress of living in that time period and the religious power at the time, I guess I could say, and religious influence was a large contributing factor to a maybe massive like psychological illness breakdown, because obviously it wasn't great to live in the medieval times, and maybe it just kind of started driving people mad, and then this was some weird trend that started and people couldn't stop. I don't know. People don't really know. There's probably more information to that, and to all of these deserve their own episode, but because this is so full of stuff, I don't necessarily want to go super deep into them. Spring-Heeled Jack was a mysterious figure from 19th century England, and it was kind of like a cryptid guy. He could jump large distances, and he was terrifying. He was believed to be a devilish prankster or some kind of sinister being, and he then kind of was, I don't want to say deified, but turned into a legend, more like a folk tale, and this inspired like copycats and other people to kind of pretend that they were him, and this led to a lot of panic because people started to get hurt or things were stolen or broken because of these copycats, and this led to like a big panic during that time period. We're on to tier number 4. Know Nothing Nativism. This was a political movement fueled by anti-immigration, anti-Catholicism ideologies at the time. This group feared that Irish and German people were undermining and screwing with American values. And the members of this movement were told to say, "I know nothing about the movement," when asked about the movement. So it would be kind of a hush-hush thing. Dangerous Dogs Act in 1991 in the UK. They just banned a bunch of dog breeds because like, you know how some people think like pit bulls are gonna kill your baby, or even German shepherds are too violent. Like that concept, just British, I guess, because they're gonna ban doggies. Holy laughter, I guess that's like not a great way to describe it. It's more of when during like certain religious movements or events, people start to laugh or shake or convulse on the floor hysterically, people believing that it's like some divine thing, and it is, I mean, it could be, depending on what you believe in, but again, it is usually pocketed around specific religious groups based in whatever it is that they believe in. And from like a medical scientific standpoint, you could argue that it's a mass hysteria type moment, especially when there's a lot of people experiencing it and a lot of people enforcing that. But a lot of people attribute this to the emotion and like the riling up of certain ideas and the passion behind religious movements and religious ceremonies. I guess it really does come down to what you believe, because I mean, people believe that you can speak in tongues, or that I think it's the Quakers believe that God can speak through anyone, which is kind of a cool concept. But I guess it, like, we've all seen videos of people are like, "You are healed," and then they're like, you know, that is what this is referring to, the of God. God gives you seizure, gives you conniption, holy autism. I don't know if I can leave that in. So this one I'm going to have to read right off of my phone here because it's kind of like a lot. The Hammersmith ghost hysteria. Near the end of 1803 in London, the Hammersmith area reported sightings of a ghost, which believed to be a spirit of a suicide victim. And in response, they formed armed patrols, because I think if we shake the ghost, it'll go away. On January 3rd, 1804, one patrol member, 29-year-old Officer France Smith, fatally shot a bricklayer because he thought he was a ghost because he was wearing white clothes. Because if we shake the ghost, it'll go away, because bullets are going to take care of the fucking ghost. The medieval dancing hysteria is on here, but I'm pretty sure we kind of already talked about it. It's exactly what I said earlier. Like 400 people were affected by it, and it was just a lot of bad shit happened. This one says it specifically took place in 1518 in Strasbourg, where hundreds of people started doing it. So I think there are two different accounts, but it's the same concept. A bunch of people started dancing, a bunch of people died because of it, couldn't stop. Could you imagine just like hitting the whip, you know, just getting diggy with it, and then just that's it, you're stuck like that. It's kind of like how polio takes your legs or whatever, or makes you cripple. It's like ALS, but it's like the opposite of ALS, because ALS makes you, you know, shrivel up like this, but like this makes you the opposite, makes you floppy. I am never gonna, people are gonna never mind. The Pokemon seizures. On December 16th, 1997, episode 38 of Pokemon aired in Japan. This episode contained scenes of extreme flashing and lights and quick movements, which sent over 600 people into epileptic seizures. This episode has since been banned. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. But a lot of people were hospitalized because of how intense their seizures were because of this Pokemon episode. It's like, yeah, Ash, get him. The Switchblade panic was in the 1950s in the United States, and this was fueled by how switchblades were depicted in the media. And have you guys seen the new It? Not the original, but like the first It that was the remake. Switchblades, if you don't know, are the ones you push the button and the blade like comes out like and then and it's gone back in the handle, and it makes it, I mean, it does make it easy to stab people, but a lot of people were afraid that the youth would get involved with it and it would start causing people a lot of stabbings or other violence with them, and so they were banned. So, with that said, this is the ending of part 1. Part 2 will come up soon after this, just because we're halfway through the Iceberg, and next episode will be a bit darker than this one. And usually when I end these episodes, I put like the sources. My sources is like credits, but I will put all of the sources at the end of part 2. So if you want those, you can watch it then. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that you learned something cool. If you guys want me to do episodes on like any of these individual topics, I think I will, like on Y2K or maybe in like the Satanic Panic one would be kind of an interesting episode. Part 2 dives a little more into some heavier topics, which I think leads to some more interesting discussions to be had. I'll say that. So look out for that. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share this with your grandmother and everyone that she knows, because I'm trying to get that old people audience. I'm just kidding. I don't know. If you could share it with people, that'd be cool. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.